All right, Anthony. So thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about what is your relation to the film and how did you get involved in this project?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. I love your festival, and I'm super happy to be a part of it. It's a festival that I love and believe in, and I really love the values that are on display with your festival. So super happy to be here. So I made a maybe my film's called The Line. It's about the Edmonton's waste sorters. Not a glamorous job, but a job that goes to people who have severe barriers to employment, as you saw in the film. This is, of course, largely for people who have criminal records, but they also hire people who have been refugees, newcomers to Canada who have a difficult time finding work, people who struggle with homelessness and drug addiction. And to answer your question, where it all started for me was I had heard about Edmonton's Waste Management Center. It's sort of in the public lore because it was at one point in sort of in like around 2011, 2012, the world leader in waste management. We had a waste to biofuels plant, we still do, two big composters, construction and demolition waste reclamation facility, electronics waste reclamation facility, just amazing, amazing technology out there. And so my partner came home one day and she said, she had just taken a tour of the place. She said, Andy, you got to go take a tour. And so I said, yeah, okay, sure. And I took this tour. They had free tours on Fridays at the time. And, we're all marveling. We're taking this tour, me and a bunch of other members of the public, and we're marveling at the technology and just the massive mountains of garbage that are being filtered and sorted and worked with. And this man dressed in coveralls, one of the sorters, one of the employees there, comes walking towards the tour group, and he's muscular and he's got tattoos up and down his sleeves, and it looks like he could be a sort of intimidating guy. And Kathy, the wonderful, warm woman who he met in the film, who runs the place and who is really kind of the spirit of the place, she says to the tour group, "Hey, everybody, this is Stacy. He's our new lead hand." And Stacy goes, "Hey, just kind of seems a little out of sorts, not really social." She senses something's a bit off with him, so she very tactfully pauses our tour, takes him aside, talks with him. That conversation ends in a hug. He goes the other way. She comes back to the group, carries on as if nothing happened. But I was so curious about this exchange because, how often do you hug your boss? And so I said, "Hey, what happened there?" And she was very forthcoming. She said, "Oh, Stacy has just recently been promoted to lead hand. And so now he's got to lead his coworkers who were yesterday his peers, and he's feeling awkward about that and feeling a bit alienated." And so I said, "Oh, okay, yeah, fair enough." And so the tour continued, but in my mind, some things were flagged. For one thing, the hug. For another thing, that they could talk about it. That he would feel comfortable to talk openly about his emotional problems with his work with his boss, and then that she would be so forthcoming about it. And so I thought, "Oh, that's pretty cool." I didn't know about the hiring program yet. And then the tour commenced, the tour concluded, and we were getting ready to leave. And he comes back, Stacy comes back to the tour group as we're getting ready to leave, and he says, hey, everybody, sorry to interrupt. I want to tell you why I'll never quit this job." We perk up, and he says, "When I came in for an interview, it was the first time in over a decade that somebody looked at me and didn't see a criminal but saw a man." And he just says this beautiful thing off the cuff. And at that moment, I was like, "Oh, okay, I think something special is happening here." And so then I got to know Kathy and I got to know the staff there. And I made a little short film pilot kind of thing, sort of a proof of concept that I then used to get funding for this larger film, The Line, which you saw and which is in your wonderful festival.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that background. I think it sounds like a very, very impressive experience. Like, it's something that really left you a really strong impression. Um, my second question is, the themes of second chances are central to this film. So to what extent does the waste management workers get support from management to pursue second chances in the job, and also, I guess, to a larger extent in life?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's complicated, like when I went into making this film, I was really conscious that I didn't want this to just be a puff piece, just highlighting a workplace that is doing something beautiful without showing the complexity, because and the complexity, I think, came in filming. We had a short filming period, but I think you can still see like the burden that Kathy bears. For example, she practices trusting people, kindness, always kindness. She and her team, Janet included, the women who run that place, they've helped arrange an ETS bus to and from the site to a central Edmonton location, because it's just a little bit out of town. They've helped people find housing, which is outside of their purview. They go to parole dates and court dates, and have even helped house people themselves. And just they've gone so far above and beyond the normal parameters of employee-employer relations, and it's beautiful. But it also takes a toll, because when I made the short film version, Kathy was experiencing a lot of success. The Waste Management Center itself was experiencing a lot of success. Then when I got the funding to do a longer version, years had passed, and our waste problem had just increased. Our population had increased. The size of our facility had not increased. Technology had broken down. Perhaps hopefully this isn't too much of a tangent, but just the world economy had changed. China had stopped accepting our garbage and recyclable materials, which they had been doing for since they joined the World Trade Organization. Basically, since China sends out so many sea cans full of manufactured goods, the global West and the rest of the world was sending back these empty sea cans. And then we thought, oh well, why don't we send them back full of recyclables and garbage that then plants in China can turn back into reusable plastics. And for a while that seemed to be working, but a few years ago, China enacted a piece of legislation that basically said in it, we don't want to be the world's dump anymore. Deal with your own recyclables. It's just piling up over there anyways. And so now, like so many places in the world, Edmonton has just this huge backlog of garbage that we can no longer ship away. And so while we were really optimistic when the Edmonton Waste Management Center was at its peak, the reality is much more dire. And garbage is a problem that we all contribute to pretty significantly every day, but by design, we don't think about it. We don't need to think about it. And we should think about it, because it's a mountain of a problem that we're all chipping into every single day. And unfortunately, the most cost-effective solution to the huge problem of garbage will probably always be landfilling, because it's just cheap. It's super cheap to just find a plot of land, dig a bit of a hole, and make a giant mountain, then bury it when it's all full. But it's of course a hugely unsustainable problem. And when we're making the film, I noticed this beautiful poetic parallel between the problem of garbage, this thing that is abject, that we reject, that we throw away, that we don't want to think about, and is by design out of sight, out of mind. And especially and the people that we quote unquote throw away, especially people who are incarcerated. Prisons are a place where people are kept out of sight, out of mind. You know, they cross the line, they cross some societal line. So if their rights are eroded, which we probably won't ever see, well, they broke the law anyway. So, you know, it's just like this thing that as a collective, we like don't need to care about. And so then so easily we can just like stigmatize and not care about, you know, some of the people who have the hardest time in our society. It's incredibly hard to get a job if you've had a terrible criminal record, no matter your, you know, change of heart. And so I wanted to make a film that would gently invite people to rethink the problem of garbage, and also to rethink the problem of social stigma.
So my next question is about, I guess, the program, the hiring program itself. This is coming more from a nonprofit program management perspective. So what would you say are the successful outcomes of this program, and how are those outcomes measured? In the film, it was mentioned that some of the workers, because there's a lot of flexibility and there's a lot of room to support them throughout their process in getting out of addictions and building their life. In some cases, people relapse. In some cases, they've passed on. So yeah, how would you say the success of the program is measured, and what are the benefits to the waste management company in hiring these workers as opposed to other workers, you know, the usual workers that people see as acceptable?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a difficult one to answer, because the Waste Management Center and Kathy's company, Quality One, they don't measure these things carefully. You know, they're not looking at people's income levels years after they leave the Waste Management Center. And for me, from my perspective, a lot of the really profound benefits of such an employment policy, where people are given chances if they screw up, where, you know, people are hired, whereas they would seem unhireable to others. These are really intangible benefits, because the feeling of community and the feeling of just belonging and friendship that you see at the Waste Management Center, this is something that's difficult to measure. So I've talked with Kathy a lot about this. Most of the people who have been through the Waste Management Center, I want to call it a program, but Kathy doesn't like me calling it a program because it's not a program, have gone on to jobs that earn more money, that, you know, there have been many stories of people who have found stability in their lives and community. But the problem with it is that it's designed to be a job that is temporary, that will help people get on their feet, get some income, you know, get some confidence, and hopefully move on, so that a job can open up for somebody else who could benefit from such a wonderful place. But the problem is that people generally don't want to leave, because they come and they find this community, they find this you know, a stable income. They also feel, even, you know, it's sorting garbage. So like I said, it's completely unglamorous, but at the same time, you find a lot of pride, because people are doing something concrete, something that is reducing our ecological footprint as a city, as a global community. And so, you know, people are pretty jazzed about what they're doing out there. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, about wanting to avoid it being a puff piece, which it's not, is that a lot of people do relapse. You know, you can't solve all of a person's problems with a nice community where people hug each other. Like, people still hang out with their old friends and family who maybe don't encourage such healthy behavior or relationships. People relapse on drugs. People go on the lam from cops. So people die, as seen in the film. And this burden really is something that Kathy bears with grace, but not with an infinite amount of energy. When we made the first one, she was very energetic and optimistic, and then when we made the longer film, I found a Kathy that was a little bit more tired, a little bit less patient with bullshit, wiser. But she, after people leave the waste management center, so many people still call Kathy daily, ask her for advice, ask her for favors. She's so connected with people, not only that still work there, but that have worked there. And one lesson that I learned personally from the film is that yes, we can create a better world by being open to each other, by loving each other, by not judging each other, by accepting each other, and working hard to create a community where we're honest with each other and kind. But it can't be an individual thing. It can't just be people like Kathy. It has to be shared so that the burden is lighter, because she carries so much.
I can definitely relate to what you're saying. I also work in social service, and it definitely takes a toll after a while.
Well, thank you for doing what you're doing. It's a beautiful effort, but I hope you have good support.
Yes, I think I do, but thank you. So my next question is about, I guess, what we can do as people who live in Alberta. So there's two parts to this question. So part one is, like, what can we do in terms of supporting the type of people who are benefiting from this program, so the people aspect. And then on the other hand, what can we do to not contribute to the waste and to make this waste management process and garbage process less of a burden on the city?
Excellent question. And I think from my point of view, there's good news and bad news. The good news is that it's as simple as being kind and conscientious with other people, with not judging, or at least being open to people who like the jacked, muscular, tattooed guy that turned out to be a total softie with a beautiful backstory. On the one hand, it is as simple as being more loving with other people. But to the problem of waste, I don't think that it's helpful or honest to individualize that problem. Yes, of course, we can all sort our waste better, and that will help, but it will only help a tiny little bit. We need to elect leaders who take the climate crisis seriously. That's the biggest thing. We need to have strong political leaders with concrete plans to deal with climate change. That's it's an emergency, and garbage is just one facet of it. So yeah, on the one hand, be good to each other, and on the other hand, elect leaders and help with efforts that are bigger, that tackle the problem on a more systemic level, rather than just the individual solution of producing less waste, which of course helps, but only a tiny bit.
Oh, that's a very, very timely solution, advice. Hopefully, with the recent election, that has made some changes. Um,
Yeah.
so funny how you mentioned hope and the climate change. We actually recently had another film that we show, which focuses on the concept of hope and the issue of climate change and how it's been an ongoing struggle for many people. Um, so that brings me to my last question. In terms of this inclusive HR practice, do you think more company can adopt this process, and how even if companies do not adopt that process, how can we as individuals maybe adopt some of those values in our workplace and play our part in giving hope to other
Yeah.
people?
Yeah, hope is a fascinating concept, because we want to have hope, that without naivety, hope that is separate from magical thinking. You know, hope isn't um, leaving it all in the hands of of God and trusting that everything will be solved. You know, hope needs to have strategy behind it. Strategy is the highest form of ethics, and I think that, yes, of course, I think that other companies should embrace such hiring policies. I think they'll be surprised with the workforce that they find. But of course, there are problems with, you know, Kathy has many problems. Sometimes people don't show up for work. Of course, Leslie mentioned sometimes people relapse. People have problems like, you know, like they're on parole sometimes, or there's language barriers. There's a lot of problems. I think that Kathy and her staff like have to deal with a lot more than the average company managers. But they practice an ethic of love and care and second chances with people. You know, I think a lot of people work in work environments where there's a little bit of fear. There's a bit of fear of your boss, you know, whether or not your boss wants to engender that. But there's commonly a culture of fear, and I think that you just don't get good work out of fear. You get good work out of love. If you know that you're accepted and valuable and you know, wanted on the team, and if there's a culture of you know, where you know you're gonna get a second chance, but it's also important that you don't abuse it. You know, like, Kathy's kind of the good cop, Janet is kind of the bad cop in the situation. So it's not like you can just like not show up for work and not get in trouble. But you know, they create such a culture of acceptance and love that I think it just like gets a lot out of people. It helps people take pride in their work and want to give that love back and pay it forward. So yes, I think it's important for people to hire um, people who have barriers to employment, but it's also just like that general thing of um, creating a culture in us. That's the individual prescription, I think, of this film, if it has one, is that just that subtle thing of in us. If we can be more loving towards others, towards ourselves, towards our communities, then there could be a real change.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really great message. Change starts with us, right? And we have to first come up with the idea. We have to be kind, like you said, be kind to each other and see what the problem are in our society and come up with a new way of doing things. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Anthony. Yeah, I hope this project or program, this process at the way at Quality One will continue, and it will help more people in the future.
Yeah, thank you very much. This has been a good conversation.
Thank you.